Hey, what's up guys? This is Zach. I'm gonna bring you sort of a collection video. Now, before I do that, I wanted to address that I will not be doing songs I've been listening to for this week. And so, yeah, I know I've said before that I wanted the next one to be my last one, but why get rid of something that isn't causing the channel any harm, I guess? So, I figured that I would go through with doing songs I've been listening to, but I've been kind of thinking about making it a monthly thing instead of a weekly thing, so I think I'll leave it at that, and not to mention, I'll have a lot more songs in that list because it'll be a month worth full of songs. And another reason why I didn't get to do it is because the songs I've been listening to lately are pretty much the same ones that I've been listening to last weekend beforehand. So, yeah. So that's why you won't see that. And so, for this video, this is going to be a different kind of video. Now, I know I've done a CD collection before, and it's done really well. And so I have decided that I wanted to do a digital album collection. Now, I know I never really got to tell you guys what albums I have in digital format. So, yeah. And so today will be my digital album collection. Now, when I show you guys these albums, don't expect anything too outstanding, because obviously back in the day I had a completely different music taste. Well, not completely different, you know, but I was more of a metalcore and rock fanboy. And this will also be in alphabetical order, so we can get started. First album I have digitally in my Windows Media Player is Silence the World by Adept. This is it's a decent album. It's metalcore, you know, it is what it is. It's got some good songs on it. The Ocean Grave is actually one that I like a little bit. Aftermath is pretty good. Yeah, it's got some good tracks on it, and I mean, if you're a fan of metalcore, I recommend this album. Next up, we got Chapters by Adestria. This is a pretty good album. This was really one of the first metalcore albums I've ever heard in its entirety. This is a pretty good album. It's got some real aggressive moments in this album, even though it is metalcore. More Than You Know is still probably my favorite track on the album, mainly because it was the first song I've ever heard from these guys, and it's more of a power ballad. Yeah, it's not a bad album. Again, if you like metalcore, check this one out. So next up we got Food Chain by the Bunny the Bear. Now this is also kind of like a metalcore band. These guys really aren't my thing anymore. I really can't take their sound like I did before. They're kind of unbearable to listen to now. But yeah, this is Food Chain. I have the deluxe edition that comes with a few extra bonus tracks. Yeah, and I think this is still probably my favorite Bunny the Bear album. The Seeds We Sow is a real good one. It's one that I will listen to every now and then. First Met You was the first song by the Bunny the Bear I've ever heard. Yeah, some good ones on here, I think. A lot of them I do skip, though. And but if you're a fan of these guys, that's cool. And I also got the album that came before Food Chain, entitled Stories, from the Bunny the Bear. This is a pretty good album, too. I don't think I like it as much as Food Chain, but I still think it is pretty good. Hey Ali's a good one, and Your Reasons and What You're Here For are also pretty good tracks. Yeah, this is a pretty good album. It's more like electronic type metal stuff. Like electronic metalcore, if you want to call it. That's what I would compare it to. The sound is a little unbearable, but I think it's a pretty decent record for what it is. Alright, now we move on to the band that helped me get into metal, Dead by April. And we're going to start with their self-titled debut. This is a good album, I gotta say, actually, and I still will listen to it every now and then. I've actually had this album listed in my top 10 favorite metalcore albums of all time list. It's actually a good one. It's actually one that you don't want to pass up. I wouldn't say I wouldn't stop you from listening to it, to be honest. It's because it's actually not too bad. It's actually a good one. Alright, so next up we got Let the World Know by Dead by April. And this is... I was about to say it was their newest album, but I would be wrong. It's not their newest, but it's the one that came before their newest. It's actually my second favorite Dead by April album, right behind the self-titled. I think this one's pretty good too. There's a lot of good tracks on here that have replay value. Abnormal, Empathy, As a Butterfly, Same Star, and Hold On are actually some really good songs. Yeah, it's a really good Dead by April album. And yeah, if you're interested in this one, I'd say go for it. Go for checking it out. And here is the last Dead by April thing I have in my library, and that is the Within My Heart EP. It comes with 3 tracks: Within My Heart, Two-Faced, and Unhateable. Now, Unhateable is probably the one I enjoy the most, mainly because it was an unreleased track to Incomparable, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, definitely an underrated one. It's a pretty good EP overall. I don't really listen to it that often, but Unhateable is a great track. And next we get into some The Devil Wears Prada, and now we got their debut album, I think, entitled Dear Love, A Beautiful Discord. Now, this is a pretty decent album, I think. A lot of weird song names and things like that. Yeah, pretty weird for a debut, but honestly, I usually don't say this about bands I like, but I actually prefer The Devil Wears Prada's newer albums over their older stuff, only because their old stuff can kind of give you a headache. So, yeah, but The Devil Wears Prada is not really a band that I really listen to all that much anymore. And the last thing I have in terms of Devil Wears Prada albums in digital is the Zombie EP. Now, I know a lot of people say that this is the best Devil Wears Prada release of all time, really. I can see why, but I do think it's a tad overrated. It does have some aggressive riffs and vocals. I think it's definitely the Devil Wears Prada's heaviest release, but I don't know. I guess that doesn't really make it my favorite, I guess you could say. But yeah, some of my, to be honest, some of the first Devil Wears Prada songs I've ever heard were on this EP, like Escape and Revive, were some songs that I've had on repeat like a few years ago. I can really, I do remember that. But yeah, a Zombie EP from Devil Wears Prada, pretty good EP. And next up we got Horseshoes and Hand Grenades by Disciple. Now, I'm not really the biggest Disciple fan, but I do think they're okay. I do think their music is a little cringeworthy, though. But the first song I've ever heard from them was actually on this album, Dear X, You Don't Own Me. I do think that's a pretty good song, but yeah, I think if you're a fan of bands like Red or Chevelle or maybe Thousand Foot Crutch, you guys would probably like Disciple, but for me, they don't really do it for me, to be perfectly honest. They're kind of like to me, they're kind of like a step above K-Love. So yeah, and they're kind of, I feel like their music's kind of, well, not their music in general, but like, I just feel like this band is quite irrelevant, and, you know, I got this album because, you know, I was a rock fanboy back in the day, so of course, I was looking for rock bands and all that stuff, so that's why I have this album. But if you like it, great. Next album I have up is Visions by Haken. Now, I've never really talked about this band before on my channel, but I have hinted that the new Breaking Benjamin album cover looks a lot like this album cover. I remember that's what I compared it to whenever I first saw the album cover for Breaking Benjamin's new album. But yeah, Haken is a very interesting band. I can see why a lot of people may not find them appealing, but I know some people might. I guess you want to call them like progressive metal. They're like a softer type metal band. But they do, I think they do have some good songs. They're not really a band that I really listen to all that much anymore. Mainly because I think their music's kind of jarring and kind of, they're also a band that's kind of unbearable to listen to. But there is some good songs on this album, like Nocturnal Conspiracy and Deathless are actually really great tracks, and I'll listen to them for nostalgia reasons, I guess. Yeah, this is a pretty good album if you're into Haken or, you know, softer type metal stuff, but I really don't listen to it as much as I used to. Next album up, we got Out of Darkness by In the Midst of Lions. Never really mentioned this band on my channel either. This album is pretty good. It's incredibly heavy though. It's I don't think it's as heavy as bands like Meshuggah. This is more like deathcore type stuff. But if you are into like Christian metal, I think you will like this, but it is a lot heavier than the usual Christian metalcore stuff. Like, it's heavier than bands like Demon Hunter and August Burns Red, but I think you might find some enjoyment out of this album. I do like this album a little bit. It's a pretty good one. Alright, so this one's gonna be a little different, but I got American 3 Solitary Man by Johnny Cash. This here is really the only country thing that I own. I think this is actually a pretty good album. There is some really good tracks on here. You know, if you're into country, I do recommend it. You know, because I'm not really too big on country, but I do like Johnny Cash just a little bit. I do think he has some good music. So yeah, if you are into country or if you're into Johnny Cash, this may be up your alley. Go check it out. Yeah, this is not an album that I really listen to much anymore, but I think it is good for what it is. Next up, we got Release the Panic Recalibrated by Red. Now, I like Red. A lot of you know that. I do. They're one of my favorite bands in the rock genre. This is really the only Red release that I don't have in physical format. And I don't think I'll ever buy it in physical, you know, because I just really don't see the point. You know, I mean, you do get the extra songs that weren't on the original version, like Run and Escape and As You Go, but I do, I think I do like the recalibrated version just a bit better than the regular version of Release the Panic, only because it sounds more like Red. But yeah, like I said, I don't think I'll ever buy this one in physical. Not only do I not really listen to Red as much as I used to, but I just really don't see any point. You know, I already have this album digitally, you know, and all it is just remixed versions. Most of it is just remixed versions of songs that were already on Release the Panic, so yeah, probably will be a no-go. But if you haven't checked out this album or this EP or whatever you want to call it, go ahead and check it out if you're a Red fan and have for some reason passed it up. You might be interested in it. Okay, so I believe those are all the digital albums I have in my collection. Now, obviously, I do have a lot more albums in my Windows Media Player library, but that's because most of them are physical albums too that I just, you know, have them CD imported. So yeah, that's my digital album collection. Obviously, I'm not as big as digital collecting as I am physical collecting. I just find it a lot more satisfying owning albums physically, but you know, I just figured I'd show you guys what albums I had in digital, and will probably only ever be the albums I have in digital. So yeah, I've had these albums for quite a long time, so yeah, I think 2015 prior. So that wraps us up. What do you guys think of my digital collection? Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.